What is it, Private?
How do I get out of this chicken shit outfit?
You secure that shit, Hudson.
Hello, lovelies. Third time's the charm trying to record this video, which isn't great when I'm still getting over that cough. If there's crackly audio this time, there's crackly audio. Right, today we're taking a look at Free League's Colonial Marines for Alien, the role-playing game. Guess what it does? Guess what it has in it? That's right, this book makes things much more aliens and much less alien. It does also delve into other military organizations or paramilitary organizations, but it's not a particularly deep examination thereof, which becomes grating when you realize that half the book is essentially wasted, at least for people like me. So yeah, it doesn't go into the other militaries particularly deeply, though obviously you can fairly easily kit bash Colonial Marine careers and stats to retrofit into most of the others, and most groups are probably going to play Colonial Marines if they're going to play anything at all, but it does feel like a bit of an omission, and while it's called Colonial Marines, I shouldn't really be coming away from a military source book unable to create the other military characters and types, or even just as NPCs with some sort of in-world consistency. But hey ho. Characters, of course, this being a Year Zero engine game, still suffer a little or a lot from the comedic levels of incompetence that are inherent in the game engine. So you're not quite really going to feel like the dick swinging badass that the Marines are in the film right up until they run into the actual aliens. But your core competency, if you choose the right specialization and you spend your points correctly, will at least be meh rather than objectively awful. We do get a nice variety of weaponry in here, but a lot of the iconic weapons have already been covered in the main book, and weapons aren't really the focus of Alien or Aliens, even though we have the iconic weapons such as the pulse rifle. And we're talking about military weapons here, so it's standard issue. You don't need a huge complement of different weapons, you just need to know what the standard issue for the various different militaries might be. Still, it's nice to see some of the iconic weapons get a bit more description and love, and things getting a bit more rounded out and supplemented with other creations, though I'm not entirely convinced that all of them, in terms of the weapons at least, necessarily fit the design ethos and style of the original films. Similarly, we see a lot more vehicles and spacecraft. These are built much more broadly along the same design principles as we see in the films, and they also wouldn't be out of place at all in a Traveller 2300 campaign or similar. It's a very definite and distinct sort of mid to late 80s military sci-fi aesthetic that you see across Battletech, Traveller 2300, films like Alien and Aliens, comics, you name it. The only thing missing really in here is a hovercraft, because for some reason people had a huge stonk on for hovercraft in the mid to late 80s. I don't know why. It seems a bit odd. But unfortunately, a lot of space, as I said, that could have been used fleshing out the other groups and militaries and providing career paths and things for them, maybe giving more weapons and equipment and so on, has instead been devoted to an adventure campaign framework that mostly doesn't have anything to do with aliens. Worse, some useful tips and ideas on running military campaigns are hidden and intermingled with the adventure campaign, which makes quick referencing of those useful bits and picking them out from the rest more laborious and tedious and harder to do than it needs to be. Now, it's not as bad as old White Wolf books where they would hide essential information in purple prose and amateurish fiction, and said by unreliable narrators, so they had plausible deniability later on. It's not quite as bad as that, but it's still bad. And look, half the book ish being wasted on adventures, I kind of understand where they're coming from, because adventures don't sell well, right, generally speaking, which is why when I have published adventures, I have tended to include with those adventures a small amount of useful supplementary material or rules that have more general applicability, right? So you buy the adventure, you play the adventure probably no more than once, but you still have something useful out of that booklet that you can then use later on. Unfortunately, some designers, some companies seem to have gone the other way. They will sell you on a supplementary book like Colonial Marines, and you will go into it expecting Colonial Marines, and instead you come away with a book that, while it has some of that source material you want, also saddles you with an adventure you didn't ask for, you don't want, you'll never use, or you'll maybe only use once, and it feels like they're kind of smuggling the adventures in, and you're paying full price for a book you're only going to use half of. Which is super fucking annoying. A bad way to go about things, and in my opinion, a waste of space and book real estate that could have been used for something else. Either halve the size of the book and half the price and sell me the useful part, and then sell the adventures separately, or expand out the useful parts to fill the whole book. Right? That's the better way to go about it, I think. That's the greater amount of value that you'll get from it. But as things stand, I feel quite ripped off, and Free League seem to be particularly bad for doing this. Their Vaesen supplement on the UK, for example, wasted a lot of space in the same way. It seems to be their way of doing things, and no, sir, I don't like it. We do get a guide to a few interesting star systems and planetary systems for military campaigns, but there's a choice here that I'm not too sure about either, in including Arcturians, a near-human alien species with some vague, hand-wavy potential connection to the engineers. A big part of the Alien and Aliens universe to me has always been the mystery and the sensation that humans are alone in the universe as sophonts, as intelligent beings, apart from hints of the ancient engineers and, you know, alien animals and microbes and algae, sure, but other intelligent aliens, let alone other intelligent humanoid aliens, feels a bit iffy to me. Certainly from watching the films, I never assumed that the Arcturans were anything other than a weird branch of humanity, maybe a cult or a religion or something living on a planet that were hedonistic and rather gender fluid. And a lot here seems to have been spun off from a side comment, a joke about Arcturian poontang and how it doesn't matter if the said Arcturian poontang is male or female. So I don't know, that doesn't feel like a good choice to me, but neither does the retrofit of the engineers that Ridley Scott's done, so I don't know, what do I know? I'm not directing these films. The Black Project section is quite interesting. There's some allusions there and elsewhere in the book to the supposed Aliens, Predator, Blade Runner / Soldier megaverse. There's a lot of allusions to various people or films that have been associated with aliens in some way as well. Dan O'Bannon gets a call out. His film Dark Star gets a call out. Life Force gets a call out. But it's just the names. Shame, really. I'd have loved to have seen some stats for, like, the beach ball monster from Dark Star, which is a brilliant film that you should go and watch, if only for the bombs. It plays a bit coy with the aliens overall, but we do get a bunch of variants, mostly the results of military experiments mutations and hybrids and things like that. I'm kind of about it, but given the theme of the book, yeah, makes perfect sense. There's even a sort of rage zombie as a result of a black goo infection, which is somewhat interesting, something a little bit different that you could do. So I'm not even to the end of the book, and I'm pretty much done talking about it because so much is wasted on this adventure path, this mini campaign, which is of zero use to me, as I said. So let's give it some scores while I finish flipping. Style, 3. It would be a 4 because the art quality is pretty good and the design aesthetic is fairly strong, but I know that white text on black pages is a no-go for a lot of you guys out there. And it definitely does affect readability, especially when combined with their font choices. It's definitely been done for aesthetic reasons over readability and usability reasons. Yeah, and I say that as someone whose computers are always in night mode because, you know, old goth. It also suffers a little or a lot in terms of the writing and the material and its quality from the relative paucity of canonical material and the steep decline that the franchise has undergone over the years. And I don't know what the terms of their license are, but that's probably fairly constricting as well. I wouldn't be at all surprised to find that the IP owners are very demanding of what can and can't be done. In terms of substance, again, I can only give it a 3 because it is super wasteful of my time and money, wasting half the book on stuff I will never use. Yet, weirdly, at the same time, this book overall is essential for a military aliens campaign. That, you know, the part that's good is good and has a lot of useful content. It just comes with all this fucking baggage that I neither need nor am interested in. Right? So, in terms of substance, if half of it is useless, at least to me, then that's going to knock the score, right? So 3 is actually fairly generous. And so we end up in this very weird position in that stylistic choices and content choices have definitely dragged the book down to a mediocre score of 6 out of 10, 3 out of 5, slap bang in the middle. And yet, at the same time, paradoxically, this book is a must-have along with the core book. Those two books together and you have everything you need to do anything related to the 2 good Alien films. I just really, really resent being forced to buy adventures that I didn't want, didn't ask for, and that have clearly come at the expense of more expansive, useful material. You may not share my prejudices. If you like preset games, if you like having campaigns, if you find them useful, if you find writing your own particularly difficult, and if the white writing on the black page doesn't bother you, then maybe this rises to a 4 out of 5. But Free League is definitely kind of pissing me off by wasting half their books on adventures that I don't want. Zang.
Game over, man. It's game over.
Bitch. Where's my money? If you want to help me out, you can subscribe to me on Patreon, which is Grimachu, on Subscribestar, which is Grim-Jim, or if you want to make a one-off donation to help support me and keep the channel going, you can do so at paypal.me, J. Desborough.